The next panelist today, and I just got to meet her tonight, as you see, when we were looking around for somebody who was really knowledgeable, really committed to the solution, we asked some very good people. We asked John Campanella, we asked Hal Conklin, we asked a few other people, and what they said is, oh, you got to get Lucrezia in here. She's the one who would understand what might be possible, because what she does is statistical analysis to support hopefully innovative solutions. So I'm going to introduce you now. Please take the floor.
Hi, everyone. I'm probably going to go through these slides a little bit quicker just for time. But first I wanted to introduce myself. So my background's in architecture with a focus on equity, socio-equity, and that means there's a nexus between the environment, the built environment, so sustainability, and current political climate in certain areas. So in my past position, I've flown across the country where we take vacant and abandoned properties and we bring them to code for Section 8 HUD and affordable housing sector. Prior to that, I worked in transitional homes and shelters, bring them to code to help people be more efficient in their shelter and transitional programs. Understanding that architecture and design is about dignity. So when we talk about housing crisis, I want us to really think that housing is an opportunity for intervention. It's not a housing crisis specifically to focus on, but a solution and how we can make a plausible step to make that happen. So I think it's important to start talking more about the influence behind a housing crisis. As already previously stated, the housing crisis is a national problem, and it goes into a lot more complex than what probably we'll review tonight. But it ranges all the way from cyclical socioeconomic gaps, as Jason touched on, to understanding that housing is a culturally impactive, reflective ideology. So if we have housing, it goes back from 1920 to National Housing Administration to the roots of Santa Barbara specific. And with that said, it's important that we really understand that we have to debunk stigma through just data. And through data, we can be above biases. These statistics were taken today. They're from a software program that I helped create with AMA Construct, so specific to Santa Barbara City. So as you can see, average monthly rental is right around 3 to 4 bedroom and is about $5,000 per month. And if you would like, after this, if you want to be able to have more of these statistics, I'd be happy to send it to you. But for time, we're going to focus on that number. And on that number, if 30% of your monthly income should be towards your living environment, $5,000 per month isn't plausible or relevant to what people make on average here in the city. So let's start with homelessness. So I have a nonprofit that serves our homeless community in Santa Barbara and work along Jeff Schaefer. In January, we did a point-in-time count. So where we walked out in Santa Barbara, the city of Santa Barbara as well as the county. But this number right here, this is for the city. We have 887 homeless individuals on any given night in the city of Santa Barbara alone. A lot of people would like to approach homelessness as it's never truly solved. It has been solved in many areas by having a housing-first approach. Having a housing-first approach helps programs be more successful in making their programs more efficient, having longevity, and being rehabilitating the member back into society. Next, I want to address public housing. And I was toying with the idea to steer away from the stigma of using Section 8. But Section 8 is often neighbors that you live right next to and have no idea. So a voucher is so that they spend 30% of their income for their housing. And as you can see, if it's $5,000 a month, if you're a family of 3 to 4 people and you need that bedrooms, you're not typically going to be only spending 30%. On average for the city of Santa Barbara, it's 70% of your income goes to your monthly rent. And so these statistics are from HUD, so urban development. And this goes for Santa Barbara County, not Santa Barbara specific. So that means Santa Maria, Lompoc, which have quite a different socioeconomic climate versus the city of Santa Barbara. As you can see, if you are a family of 4 and make $80,000 in the county of Santa Barbara, and that's the county, then you're living below the poverty line. If you're in the city, was not on here specific, that's $104,000 annually. So affordable housing, there is often a response from the community when we say we're building affordable housing. Oftentimes people have an idea that it's going to impact the value of their home or it's going to impact the climate of their community health. But in actuality, affordable housing is 60 to 80% AMI. That means people who make around $45,000 to $65,000 plus. AMI, by the way, stands for area median income. And the only thing they can afford is obviously around $2,000 per month or less. Next is workforce housing. That's 80% to 120% AMI, area median income. And what I want to expand on the next slide is RHNA. So RHNA is an acronym that starts for Regional Housing Need or Assistance. We need almost 2,000 units built by 2023, or we'll be losing the money that supports our veterans and our homeless community. But we need to be smart about it. That doesn't mean that we have very quick solutions. We need to integrate and be intentional to avoid segregated housing developments. So when we approach something, it can't be a short-term solution. Tiny homes, if it's a long-term solution, would be relevant, but if it's a quick solution, that's not going to solve it. It's just going to be the same repeated cycle that we've been seeing since segregations from the beginning. That means we need to do architectural design for socio-equity. So this is I'll go over this briefly. There's been a movement in designing things more sustainable, being socially conscious of our environment. The same program that started LEAD will be starting SEED, and that was a movement by Chicago. And SEED is an acronym for socioeconomic and environmental design. So that means taking the environmental factors of sustainability, but then making that relevant to socio design. And that is how you make something more long-term. In a nutshell, if you're making something prefabricated and quick and you're value engineering an affordable unit, you want to make sure that it's going to stand so in 10 years you don't have to rehabilitate it and make sure that it's safe and that people are going to move forward with their lives to the next step and ultimately become homeowners. I want the conversation to really start in thinking of how this affects me. I hear the term NIMBY when I moved to Santa Barbara a lot, and I didn't know what it meant. It's not in my backyard. The actuality is there's no such thing as NIMBY. So it's in your backyard right now. So how can you make this a solution for that? So areas of opportunity really need to focus on the missing middle. The missing middle mean the middle class. So people who are millennials, seniors, or making an average income that's between the middle class, which again ranges from 45, and if you're doing workforce, over $85,000 to $104,000 annually, need to be able to live here so that they can help Santa Barbara thrive in its diversity, help businesses long term. Mixed use. Mixed use seems new to Santa Barbara when we're talking about CBD. CBD is an acronym for Central Business District. This is downtown State Street. This isn't a new concept. This has been happening since the Industrial Revolution, where you work and you live in so close proximities. A lot of the neighborhoods that were built in Europe with that ideology in mind are thriving. They have density housing in some places, and they have common areas. State Street is a prime example where we have vacants that can be turned into mixed-use properties with the right policy application and allow that to be successful. A few policies to keep in mind would be doing a 10% as a bonus density. Coming from a company where we took vacant and abandoned properties, we had to work with both the public and the private sector to make it viable through the concept of return of cost. So if you are constructing something, you have to consider how much you're going to make, how long it's going to take, and how long you're going to have your investment back. So if your intent is to have 5% or more on the return of cash of your investment, then having 10% as your bonus density rather than 10% taking away from your market rate is invaluable. Eliminating the cost of land. This is common on the East Coast, where if you are working to build on, say, a parking lot, then you are not charged for the cost of land if you are working for affordable or workforce housing specific. Also, decreasing parking spaces where they are no longer needed or viable. Senior housing often doesn't need parking spaces and can decrease that to increase units and then have something available. Senior housing right now has a wait list of 8 years to an affordable unit. And proximity to public transportation should be another consideration. In many counties, they allow them to consider how far it would be and what the walk score of the area is before they mandate how many parking spots are for that development. And I want you to know that I believe there are solutions. I would encourage you to know that many solutions have happened by people believing in themselves to move forward and make that happen through coalitions and grassroots movements. Grassroots movements are here happening in Santa Barbara, whether you help Habitat for Humanity, Housing for People, Self-House Housing, Housing Authority. Get involved, be educated, and know that your voice matters. And I wanted to end with one of my favorite quotes from Jane Jacobs. The pseudoscience of planning seems almost neurotic in its determination to imitate empirical failure and ignore empiric successes. So we're going to open up for question and answers at the end, and I would hope that as we come forward and we talk, that we bring up solutions and successes as our main focus. Thank you.
Thank you.